so much for attending this special pop-up summer forum, the first of a few we may have, focusing in on the steadfast and transformational work of our global missions team and their work in Mwitikira around education and agriculture and food security and water supply. This really has been almost a 20-year long, is that where we are? Very deep, meaningful, abiding relationship and community that St. Paul's, through the incredible work of many people sitting here and wherever Roger is, Roger Whitfield has made to happen. So I'm really excited to hear from them. And also, they just received a $47,000 community grant award to build a drip irrigation project for the people of Mwitikira, which you will hear more about briefly in a moment. So this is Bishop Tutu is one of my big heroes, and he put together this beautiful African prayer book, which you might want to check out at some point. And here is a prayer from the African prayer book. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Lord, we thank you that our churches are like big families. Lord, let your spirit of reconciliation blow over all the earth. Let Christians live your love. Lord, we praise you in Europe's cathedrals, in America's churches, in our African songs of praise. Lord, we thank you that we have brothers and sisters and siblings throughout the world. Be with them that make peace. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. And then I introduce to you Joe Kerfit.
Thank you, Glenn. It's my pleasure to serve as the successor to Roger Whitfield as chairman of the Global Missions Committee. Global Missions at St. Paul's goes back to 2007. That was when our church decided to join a program that was being promoted in the Diocese of Virginia and other Virginia dioceses. The program was called the Carpenter's Kids Program, and it was a program that provided funding for school supplies, meals, uniforms to AIDS orphans in central Tanzania that would enable them to go to school. There were many participating U.S. parishes, and each was linked with a separate village in Tanzania. We were linked to the village of Mwitikira. Now, people sometimes say, how do you pronounce that word? It's M-W-I-T, and you do pronounce, the M is not silent, but if you have a southern accent like I do, it's almost unpronounceable. So it should be Mwitikira, but to me, it's just Mwitikira. So in any event, our support over the years enabled 135 children in Mwitikira to attend school. The program has ended. We are now down to our last two kids that we are supporting. Some of these kids went all the way from first grade through high school under our support. Just about every other U.S. parish has ended their support. There are only a handful that are still involved in these villages. We are one of them, and I'd like you, if you would, to look at this video to give you a little better idea of exactly what it is that we do there.
Is an arid and impoverished village of around 5,000 in the East African nation of Tanzania. St. Paul's first came to know of Mwitikira in 2007 through the Diocese of Virginia and Carpenter's Kids, a program to purchase school supplies for the many AIDS orphans then found in central Tanzania. Since the beginning with Carpenter's Kids, we have supported education by providing desks, books, and school supplies. We enable completion of 2 new primary classrooms.
Mwitikira's water system was crumbling when St. Paul's became involved with the village. With our support, there is now a functioning water system that distributes water to all areas of Mwitikira. Hunger is always an issue. St. Paul's has responded to several crop failures by providing funds for the purchase of grain. To address long-term hunger, we developed, with partners in central Tanzania, a 5-year program to train villagers in conservation agriculture and airtight grain storage. We have supplied equipment, seed, and instruction in the form of a resident agricultural specialist.
St. Paul's support for St. Andrew's Parish in Mwitikira has included help with building its new church building. We also enabled the village's priest, Father Erasto, to obtain his bachelor's degree.
More than 30 members of the St. Paul's community have visited Mwitikira, including myself. What strikes all of us is the respect and deep appreciation that the people of Mwitikira have for St. Paul's. As I approached the village, I was welcomed with a joyous celebration filled with music and dancing. It quickly became apparent that St. Paul's has made a huge difference in the villagers' lives and that they are deeply grateful. Those of us who have visited Mwitikira see our time there as one of our lives' most important experiences, something moving and profound. All of us have come away feeling that we have received a lesson in generosity, faith, and joy.
St. Paul's is a presence throughout Mwitikira. It is our hope that we see our brothers and sisters in Mwitikira as a presence in our St. Paul's community as well.
The projects that you just saw in the video have been administered by the Global Missions Committee and have been reviewed before we go into it, obviously. They've been made possible by grants from the church through its annual budget, individual contributions, visits by the more than 30 parishioners who have actually visited Mwitikira, and a lot of volunteer time and energy. What we'd like to do now is to focus on 3 specific areas, and I'm going to ask Joyce Smith if she would first of all address education. Joyce has been to Mwitikira on 2 occasions and is scheduled to be back again this fall. Following Joyce will be Tom Smith, who also has been there twice and is going back, who's going to talk about food security and agriculture. And finally, we'll finish up with Chris West. Chris had his first trip last year. He's going back again this fall, and Chris is going to talk some about our relationship with the folks there. Joyce? Thanks.
Thank you all. So as Joe mentioned, the education in Mwitikira really started with the Carpenter's Kids program, and as that has been winding down, the Global Missions Committee has done our strategic planning, and we're wanting to know what we could do with education. So in 2023, when Kyle, Chris, Tom, and I went back to Mwitikira, I was tasked with 3 things. Was to find out about higher education, secondary education, and primary education for Mwitikira. So, and all of the pictures that you see in this presentation were taken in 2023 at the village. Oops.
Is an arid.
Okay, it's up, not down. Okay. So one of the things is there's a lot of challenges in Tanzania, and this is actually, I got a lot of this information from the USAID report. The latest one was in February of 2024, and they have these large student-to-teacher ratios. They have problems retaining teachers, particularly in the rural areas where it's not as inviting to go to. The retention for girls is difficult. In the rural areas, girls are often married off at a very young age, 13 and 14 years old. Overall, the quality of education in Tanzania is pretty poor. And this is a picture of the primary school A that's in Mwitikira, and you can see all of these challenges that the USAID mentions in this picture. The other thing is that the national exams are all given in English, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But in the primary schools, they are taught in Swahili, and this is across Tanzania, but they're taught English as a subject. In order to progress in their educational system, you have to take, at the end of primary school, you have to take an exam. If you pass that exam, you get to go on to secondary school. That exam is given in English. So I'll tell you more about that later. Okay, so Mwitikira itself. There's two primary schools, Primary School A and Primary School B. We visited both of those when we were in Mwitikira, and there's also a secondary school, which we visited as well. The above top picture is Primary School B. It's a newer school. It has 154 students because they're adding a grade a year. So they were up to the standard second when we were there. Tanzania uses the British system. So their two primary schools are what they refer to as Standard 1 to Standard 7. Primary School A has 820 students. The secondary school, the lower picture, is what they refer to as forms 1 through 4. I actually have a chart of this so I can keep it straight, but if you have any questions, just talk to Roger because he grew up in that system. So forms 1 to 4, and they have 301 students. The secondary school is a boarding school. So this school, the secondary school, is for all the surrounding villages. So imagine this, you can see in Mwitikira alone, they probably have over 1,000 schools in their, 1,000 students in their two primary schools, but the number, so imagine other villages like this, the number that make it to secondary school is very limited. About 24% of the population in Tanzania can go on to secondary school. Okay, so the primary school. So, as I said, I was tasked with finding out about all these, the higher education, primary schools. So what we did is we met with the headmasters at Primary School A and Primary School B. That's us in the office. The upper picture is us in the office meeting with the headmaster. We then went through the school. We talked to some of the teachers. We walked through the classrooms. And we wanted to know, what is it you need? As we're thinking through what our next steps can be to assist the village, we understand that it's got to be programs that they want and things that they need, not what we come in and decide that it's good for them. So what they said was student desks, furniture for the headmaster's office. That bottom picture is the new school, the Primary School B, and you can see that's the headmaster's office. There was nowhere to sit. Chairs and tables for teachers. When we were in the teachers' class, in the classrooms, the teachers had no chairs and tables, so they would have to prop their books and their papers up on the window ledges. Teacher housing. In the rural villages, the teachers are expected to find their own housing. So some of the villages in Mwitikira has housing for maybe 1 or 2 teachers, but not much, so that's also something they need. Student uniforms. The students are required to buy their uniforms in order to go to school. Most of them can get together the money to do that, but it's often their best set of clothing, so they wear them for church, they wear them for special occasions, and they just wear out. And they also needed athletic equipment. The secondary school, as I said, it is a secondary school that serves all the surrounding villages. It is a boarding school. There, we were able to meet with the headmaster, with teachers, with a group of teachers, and also with the students themselves. So that upper picture you see is us in a dining hall at the secondary school, and we're talking to the students. What they expressed as their needs was a water tank to provide for the school needs. They are on the system, the village's well system, but they're at the very end of the line. So by the time the water gets to them, there's often not a lot of pressure. And the time we were there in 2023, they were having some problems with the pumps. They also, the headmaster said they really needed a printer. They had no way to print off lessons. He had no way to print exams for students, so everything had to be done like on the chalkboard, and the students just had to do their best. So a printer, chairs and desks for students, water and electricity in the classrooms, athletic equipment. The secondary school is a newer school that the government put in, and the government did clear a field for the students, but that's it. There's no equipment. They said if they could just have soccer balls or a volleyball and volleyball nets, things like that. and sanitary supplies for girls. So this is something I was really impressed about. When we were meeting with the students, we asked them what questions they had, what things that they needed. And this one young lady had the courage to stand up, and this was a group of young men and young women, and say that that's one thing that the girls really lacked and would be very helpful for them. So when I came back to the United States and I was to report back, one of the things that working with the Global Missions Committee we've said is that what we can do is we can look at their immediate needs. We had, because of St. Paul's and because of a generous donor, we had about $14,000 available to us to work on things. So on higher education, it's not a priority. I recommended, and the Global Missions Committee agreed that since it's not a priority of the village, it would have limited impact. It would cost between $2,000 and $4,000 per year per student to send them on to the university level in Tanzania, and that would be a commitment for 2 to 4 years, depending on the type of program that the student went into. So we decided we weren't going to be able to do that. And really, most importantly, there's no position in the Diocese of Central Tanzania that would oversee this program, because it's not something that they're really committed to. So we decided that that's not something we want to do. However, for the primary school, we realized that we could provide the desks. They needed 190 desks and 13 chairs and tables for teachers. And for the secondary school, the printer, we knew that we could do that and that we could provide them with desks and chairs. So we did a lot of research here in the U.S. We had a good idea of how much things would cost. We also asked Father Erasto, who was coordinating this with us, to work with the headmaster and the diocese and to come up with estimates, and they were very close to the information that we had. So we were very excited about that. They were also able to, Father Erasto was also able to identify this group called the Mwitikira group, which means assist in Gogo, which is the language of the village of Mwitikira. And this group provides vocational training to young men to provide them a skill, and they built the desks for us. So we're really pleased about this. So not only did we get desks, but we were able to help this group out. So this is them building the desks. And then on April 17th this year, the desks were delivered to the village, and they had a big celebration. And they invited, and this is all the desks you can see, and I don't know if you can read it, but it says donated by St. Paul's. They invited the bishop, they invited government officials, all the school children that are there. I picked out a few of the pictures, but they were so happy. They sent us all these pictures of them dancing and the children, so it was really nice. And Father Erasto called it a day among special days. So we were very pleased to do this. So you might be wondering, where do you want to go next? So that's one of the things that we're working on in Global Missions. And what we feel is like English language skills would be incredibly beneficial. English is the second official language in Tanzania. It is also the language of business and commerce. It is a language that is used in secondary education and in post-secondary or university education. Without the English language skills, you are really limited in your opportunities. There's not a lot of people in the village that speak English, so we are exploring ways that we could get an English language teacher and have them available to work with the village. The village is interested in it. They said that if you speak English well, you have much more opportunities to get a government job. And getting a government job in Tanzania, that's really great for the people. It also opens up opportunities to do other things. You can work in the city, you can be a taxi cab driver, all these other things if you speak English, which would be very helpful. My dream too, going back to English, is that I would love to see us be able to start some kind of a preschool for the children, and what they refer to as an English medium preschool, where they start learning English early, so as they enter school, they have an advantage and can go on to secondary school. So that's what the diocese, we're working with the bishop, we're talking to the village. It's a big undertaking, so it's not something we'll be able to do immediately, but I think it's something that we can accomplish. And the Diocese of Central Tanzania does run 6 schools. tuition-based schools. And we were able to visit one of those when we were in Dodoma, and we went through their 4- and 5-year-old classrooms and programs, and they do a very good job, and it's an English medium school. All of the excellent private school, all of the good private schools in Tanzania are English for the reasons I talked about: language of diplomacy, language of business, language of education. But any questions? I think that's everything. Yep. Any questions? Yes.
How far, I mean, the village is how far from, let's say, the largest city or town, or how's it?
So Dodoma is the largest city to the village, and it's actually now the capital of Tanzania, so it's growing very rapidly. There are not good roads, so the physical distance is not as much a barrier as a road system, so it takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours by Jeep to get to the village. It's remote. It's remote. Now, the government has promised to put in better roads. We'll see. We'll see. Hopefully they will.
Are they looking to maybe have somebody from the United States come as an English teacher there, or kind of a homegrown student that's been to an English-speaking school stay there as the?
That's an excellent question. So we talked to them a bit about that. It is very difficult to get good teachers who speak English, because if they have that skill, they're going to these schools that are in the cities, better locations, the private schools, which pay better. So we're open to figuring out if there's a way we could get someone to go over there for a period of time to teach English. They actually, this is interesting, Tanzania, and it hit me after a few days the first time we were there, they speak English with an American accent. And I asked them, because they were a British colony, I said, why do you have an American accent? And they said they don't like the British accent. So they have an American accent. So what they really want, what they really would like is people who, like us, that speak American English, because they said it's really hard for them to get the right pronunciation, because if you learn there, you know how it is when you learn a second language, you pick up your own influences. So they love that. So if it was an American who was able to go, they would appreciate it. Oh, sorry.
I might need some technical help here, Chris.
The up button.
Up button, okay. Okay.
If it's upside down.
All right. Let me get to my notes. So I'm going to talk about 3 things. The food security program that we have been working with the village on for the past 6 years. Briefly, the new small irrigation project that we're in the process of launching now, and then just a couple of words about our planned upcoming trip in October. So for the past 6 years, St. Paul's has been supporting a food security program in the village. That started out with 56 farmers the first year, and it has grown to about 200 farmers by the 6th year. So the food security program is, in part, it's conservation agriculture, which means using a 2-wheeled tractor to basically cut a narrow furrow. That helps conserve water and enables them to basically get more crops on the ground, plant more acres than they can if they're just using hand tools. And then also employing composting to help add nutrients to the soil and help with water retention, and then also interplanting different plants with the crops, so like often legumes. So the first thing is, people usually ask me, what is a 2-wheel tractor? And you saw one in the video. I grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania. We had a 2-wheel tractor, so I knew what it was, but it's like, what? So this is a 2-wheel tractor. That's Musa. He's not actually saying, what is a 2-wheel tractor? He knows what it is. And then the ripper is that basically small kind of one-bladed plow you could think of that cuts a furrow. this is in opposition to plowing fields with oxen, which creates a lot more soil disturbance, more loss of nutrients, more loss of water, more compaction of the soil, and this enables them basically to put more seed in the ground. A second critical element of the food security program has been storage. So they typically would lose a lot of their crop to insect damage. And so there's two types of storage that got implemented through the program. One is in-ground storage that you see on the left. And that's basically storing the grain in the ground and covering it up so that it's sort of free of bugs, no oxygen getting in, and a great way to save their crop throughout the year. And some folks had trouble with this in the lower lying areas when the rain is all about being erratic here. So they got some really heavy rains and had some water penetration into their storage devices. The second sort of storage thing that's been really popular for the last few years, and we've been helping them purchase these grain storage bags. They're basically a double-walled bag to store the grain, and that has worked great. People are really happy with that. Third element are kitchen gardens. So these are basically just feed bags filled with compost and soil that they can grow mostly leafy vegetables next to their house just to help supplement their diet, and getting water from the village water system to keep them going. And this was really encouraging because as we walk through the village, Musa will take us to farmers who are in the conservation agriculture program, but then we would also come across people who weren't in the program but were using kitchen gardens because they saw what their neighbors were doing. So it was really spreading nicely throughout the village. And then the last sort of critical element of this whole food security program has been the committee. So Musa has formed a basically team of people in the village who have adopted the program, who've helped train their neighbors on conservation agriculture, and who are in charge of sort of overseeing and running the program through this committee. And then I would say one of the greatest gifts of this whole program has been this guy in the bottom left, not me. The one is Musa. He's smart. He's extremely engaging. The people love him. You walk through the village, everyone's saying, "Hey, Musa," waving to him. He's a member of the Go-Go tribe. He and his family live in the village. He's a member of the church, and he's just, a lightning rod for the success of this food security program, and a really key element to the next effort with the irrigation project. So he is a total blessing to have in Mwitikira. So next thing I want to talk about is the project that's getting started now. So 2018, 2019, what emerged as the village's really top priority was some method to be able to have irrigated crops, really vegetables. And so the first thought was some kind of catchment basin to catch rainwater, store it through the dry period, and use that to irrigate fields. And that turned out to not be viable. We went through a couple other options, and finally settled on the idea of drilling a new borehole in the village, a new well that will be used to irrigate crops. A couple key sort of local on-the-ground experts that are helping to make sure this is a success is Israeli non-governmental organization Cultivate. They are based in Dodoma. They're doing work in the area. They bring a lot of practical expertise from Israel and the work that they're doing in Tanzania with what crops do well, how much water do the different crops need, how much nutrients do they need. So they are great experts on the ground for us to be working with, and they will be part of this project, making visits to the village. They have a good relationship with Musa, working with him. And then another key element is this man, Mr. Musaya. He is a man who lived in Arusha. Arusha is the town you fly into if you're going to Kilimanjaro or the Serengeti. He was a farmer up there. He moved down to, it's about half an hour north of Mwitikira, and set up a farm, which that's a whole nother story, but let me just say, by miracle, we found this man driving down a dirt path in our Jeep to the middle of nowhere, and here was 8 acres under irrigation of fantastic vegetable farm that created a vision for the folks in Mwitikira where they could really make this happen. So he's got 8 acres. So he's also going to be part of the project to provide consultation and expertise in the village to make it happen. And basically, it's drill a borehole. You have tanks that are elevated. The water's pumped up to the tanks, and then it's a gravity-fed system to come out to the crops. The idea is that for the first year, we'll have about 3 acres under irrigation. Some of the key crops are tomatoes, watermelon, okra, eggplant, cabbage, and onions. The revenue system, it's possible for this to be generating about $10,000 in revenue per acre per year. And the funds, 20% of the revenue from sort of the prior season of crops will be set aside into 3 different pots. So 20% of that money will go to sort of operational costs, seeds, fertilizer. 60% will be put into a fund for maintenance needs and repairs on the system. And then another 20% will go into a fund that will be used to support other needs in the village, like food security, school needs, et cetera. So that's sort of the revenue plan for the system. They are in the process, as we speak, of doing a water survey. The plan is to drill the borehole on 6 acres that the diocese owns in the middle of the village. And so we're anxiously awaiting the results of the water survey and then for the drilling to start. So that's sort of where we're at, but we're very excited about this getting launched and watching it over the next 2 years. And then the third thing is just to quickly say that we are planning a trip for October 14th to the 23rd. What does that mean? It means like 24 plus hours of travel to get to Dar es Salaam from Richmond. Then we usually spend the first night in Dar, and then it's either an 8-hour bus ride, or we've chosen to fly an hour and a half from Roger. Roger is the prophet of the bus ride. He took Joyce and I on our 8-hour bus ride, and many other folks from St. Paul's on the bus ride. Anyway, then you get to Dodoma, which is the capital. Spend some time there meeting with folks from the diocese in the capital, going to the food market, buying food for the stay while you're in the village, and then, as Joyce mentioned, the long, bumpy ride down the road to the village. Bottom left is where we stay. It's a small house. It will accommodate 4 or 5 people. Your food is cooked over an open fire. Bathing happens with people who are boiling water over an open fire right there in that courtyard. You stand in a little concrete room that's got a pail of water that's been heated on the open fire, and you have a little pail to sort of, so it's primitive. There's no running water in the house. There is electricity now. That's been a major improvement. And then lots of meetings with the people in the village to find out how they're doing, what's working, what isn't working, what are their needs to help us decide, you know, what can we help them with? Because it's what, an essential element, as Joyce mentioned, is It's got to be, what do they want? What can they do for themselves with some assistance for us? Definitely not, what do we think they need and what can we write a check for? It's like, what can they do? So that's a quick wrap up. Oh, I do have one more thing. And on this trip, if you're lucky, you get to dance with the bishop. This is the bishop in the foreground there. This was a celebration that was going on while we were there. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and we'll take questions when we're finished.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. This is my first trip this past fall, and I don't think I can accurately describe what an incredible opportunity, incredibly humbling to experience this, their generosity, their sense of radical welcome. If you've been to Mwitikira from St. Paul's, raise your hand. I know we have a couple people in the room. Yeah, it's been countless people over the years. We've developed deep relationships with a number of people over there. One of our relationships is with the bishop himself, Bishop Chilangani. And we'll just put a plug in. You may have read in Grace Notes, email, and printed that the bishop will be visiting Richmond, Virginia, and will be staying with us for about 5 days at the end of June. And we'll be preaching the June 30th service at St. Paul's. So please make sure to come out. He's been to St. Paul's before, and we'll be spending that week with him, taking him around Richmond. He's an incredibly generous man. When we went to go visit, as we mentioned earlier, we spent a few days in Dodoma, which is where the bishop lives, and his office is held. He cleared his schedule for us that day. Took us out for lunch, had a big welcome breakfast for us in his office, and really wanted to talk. And his relationship, he's been bishop since, I believe, 2014, so he's been bishop for 10 years and has spanned numerous bishops here in our diocese and comes over quite frequently. You can see him there in the purple shirt, and his wife, Penda, will be with him as well. Father Erasto, he's the priest in the local village. St. Andrew's Church, St. Andrew's Anglican Parish is the name of the local church there, and it is in the middle of the village. And Erasto knows everyone. Everyone knows Erasto, and everywhere we went, sometimes we weren't quite sure where we were going, but they knew Erasto, and if they knew Erasto, then we were golden. And that picture, on the last day of our trip in the village, or the next to last day in the village, the bishop had designated that week, we didn't know it till we got there, as a week of evangelism. And so there were all these missionaries and ministers going out door to door across the whole diocese, and including in Mwitikira, and they decided to do a closing ceremony at St. Andrew's Parish in Mwitikira. The bishop came down with about 30 of his staff members, and they held baptisms. And so that's actually, I think there was like 4 different baptism stations. There was a clergy at each one, and all of the people that had decided to become Christian and attend church came up to get baptized. And so it was a really incredible thing to sit there and watch all these baptisms happen. This is just pictures of the church, the parish, outside and inside the church. Every day during the evangelism conference, they had choirs singing and dancing and people preaching. And so we were able to attend several of those. It was it's very customary that in a lot of places that we went, they stopped what they were doing to welcome us. And And we got to get up and introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about who we are and why we were there. And it was recall one of the moments that I think it was one of the church services that I think I got up and said that we were from St. Paul's, and that we prayed for them every day. That St. Paul's prays for Mwitikira and prays for the Church of St. Andrew's, and the people just erupted immediately in applause, and you could just tell what that meant to them, and who we are. And everywhere we went, it didn't matter who you are. If you just said that you were from St. Paul's Richmond, everyone knew it. Everyone knows St. Paul's Richmond, and it was just this incredible welcome. When we talk about generosity, these four ladies, really showcase that generosity the entire trip. They are, the one in the middle is Rebecca. She's Erasto's wife. The lady to the right of her is Paulina. The lady on the left is the other Rebecca, Rebecca. And they help take care of us every day. They would get up before us and start the fire and start cooking, get the water ready for us, clean the house, sweep the floors, and spend much of the day preparing our meals with the vegetables and the items that we purchased. You can see there, that was probably a lunch that we had, rice, peppers, peas, boiled chicken, like a tomato salsa, some chopped up spinach maybe, or Chinese cabbage. That's right, Chinese cabbage. So that was sort of an example of a lot of what we ate consistently. But it was just incredible to see these ladies stop their daily lives to take care of us and to welcome us and to look after us. One of the most, as Joyce mentioned in the video, Joyce mentioned this, I think it was, there's so many emotional moments, especially for me, my first time, and it really all started when we were on the way into the village. We were in the diocesan Land Rover, and, all of a sudden, we see these kids riding the two-wheel tractor that St. Paul's purchased. They had hooked up a trailer so they could ride it. And these kids met us at the edge of the village with horns and music, a boombox, and they had a microphone, saying, "Welcome to Mwitikira, St. Paul's," and they escorted us into the village. And then when we got into the village, we had to stop driving and get out, and we were with this welcome parade, and it is just an incredible ceremony. These are just more pictures of more people in the village. This was, I think, a lot of the people in the agriculture program. One thing that really stood out to me, the lady on the left, very custom. It's tradition in their culture to refer to women as Mama, and then the name of your firstborn, and so Mama Chris or Mama Charlie. And this lady, her nickname is Mama Mboga, which means Mama Vegetable, because she's so well known for the produce and the agriculture that she grows. So Musa took us out there to visit her, to see her house and her land, and it was incredibly humbling when she was so thankful for St. Paul's and so thankful for us When we went to visit her, she went into her kitchen and brought out the eggs that she had for the day, and she wanted to give us all that she had to St. Paul's to say thank you. And it was just a moment that you can't be described unless you were there in person, because I think just we think about what it means to be Christ-like. That she's the example of that. Rebecca on the right, just look how proud she is of her storage, all that they've grown with their hands and saved up to live on, and that's her pantry. That's all that she has for the year, that she has to stretch until the next rainy season to grow more. So that's all that I have, and turn it back over to Joe.
We've tried to give you just a little taste of what it is like to visit Mwitikira and what it's like to support what they are doing in that community. I've been involved since 2013, I guess, over 10 years, and it has been an incredibly meaningful experience for me. This church has done a lot. It has done a lot in terms of financial support, in terms of human support. And we're now getting, as you can see here, more and more younger people involved in this. And I'm hopeful that we'll have several more who are going to be going this fall. We've got just a couple of minutes, and then I know we need to break up. Are there any last questions that we could try to answer? Okay, thanks very much. We appreciate you being here. Did I miss somebody? I'm sorry, did I miss a question? Was there a hand up? I don't think so. Okay, great. Thanks, guys.